This is Lady Anne, owner of Cape Canaveral Radio and hostess of the Caravan Library of Lore, and I support Tessa. As an experiencer myself, I have filed my own reports with them, and the professionalism and heart they have shown my case goes above and beyond. If you have had an experience, I cannot recommend Tessa enough.
Hi, this is Ernie Hudson, Winston Zedmore from Ghostbusters. I want to let you know that Ryan Stacy, he's created the Experiencer Support Association, TESA. You can check them out at www.tesacan.org. Now, they investigate paranormal, UFO, and provide support to experiencers. But you can check them out at, like I said, www.tesacan.org and see for yourself if they're really Ghostbusters. I can tell you this, they are a non-profit organization. Good luck, have fun, and keep it positive.
Good evening. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experiencer Support Association. TESA is a UFO, paranormal, and paracryptid investigation association. We investigate everything belonging to the global phenomenon linked to highly strange and unexplained experiences. We also connect experiencers with other experiencers, creating a safe, positive environment to engage and discuss this phenomenon without judgment, criticism, or retribution. From the land of the white rolling sands on the southeasterly tip of Georgian Bay, to all of you listening around the world, as we simulcast live on KBNL Radio, we salute you. If you want to go back and listen to our previous episodes, go to youtube.com/the Experiencer Support Association. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button and ring that bell to be instantly notified when we are live, not only for these episodes, but every single element TESA has to offer. On our website, tessacan.org, we have something for everyone. We have support for experiencers, data for independent researchers, and places to advertise for professional partners. Hello, everybody. Today is Thursday, October 21st, 2021, and I, Ryan Stacy, am your host this evening. I am a licensed private investigator, a citizen journalist, and the Director of Investigations for the Experiencer Support Association. Welcome to the channel, and thank you for joining us this evening. To Super Chat, click the $ next to your name in the comment box. Remember that all donations go back into the mission. If you're catching this on the replay, please consider becoming a member and unlock bonus content, including behind the scenes and extended footage on the new project development and investigations. I'm going to shout out right now to an Allison Yellowknee because she just became a member today. So thank you so much for tuning in. Just click the big blue button that says join too. That's how you become a member. So our guest for season 3, episode 33 is Mary Ann Bisson. I hope I said that right. I forgot to ask you how to say that. That's weird. Season 3, episode 33, 333. I'm just noticing that. So Mary Ann is a certified consulting hypnotherapist and a member of the Manitoba Hypnotherapists Association and the National Guild of Hypnotists. She's also a certified Reiki Master, bilingual spiritual health coach, psychic medium, and a certified angel card reader. Marianne can provide distant Reiki treatments for clients, their pets, and offer transmission of light DNA activations. Very curious about what that is. Her office is in Lorette, just 10 minutes south of Winnipeg, Manitoba, right here in Canada. She also volunteers as an investigative profiler to a group based in the USA dedicated to helping families locate missing loved ones. I am also interested in that. Marianne believes that distance has no barriers because spirit is energy to which we are all connected. So Marianne, welcome. Put on your tinfoil hat. We're about to go down a rabbit hole. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Did I say your name right?
Well, it's French, so in French we pronounce it Bisson, but Bisson, doesn't matter. It's all good.
Okay, so I was wrong.
It's all in translation.
A fellow Canadian should have known that.
It's okay.
It's all good. So welcome. Okay, so we're gonna start as usual with a icebreaker from the Demon Guy Morrison. So
Good.
1 second.
Bring it on.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know what that is, so Tim, the Demon Guy Morrison, he will give me an icebreaker. I'm going to read that for the first time, and we're going to answer that question and go from there. So his question is, if you could go back in time and give your parents advice before you were born, what would it be? Advice.
About feeling good about yourself, having your own inner strength so that you can do what's right for yourself and not just for others. Because I find sometimes people are so invested in helping others that they're not taking time to find their own strengths. And I think that's really important. That's what I would say for that.
That's good. Yeah, do you think they'd listen? They listened to you? You went back and told them that?
I can't say that. I'm not sure, but I think it's good advice, though.
Okay. I don't know what I would say. Maybe I'd probably go back and say, I don't know. I have no idea. My family's strange.
So is mine. It's all good.
It's all good. All right. Thank you, Tim, for that icebreaker. So welcome. This is, and you divulged to me, I learned this today. This is your first podcast as ever. Right. So please relax. Don't worry about it. We had a good conversation before we started. We're just gonna have a conversation. I'm curious to know, why you're the way that you are, how this all started. So let's just, like, how far back do you want to go? Go to the beginning. How did you get into this?
Into this. Well, I don't know if it's the into this. You just kind of start off. When I was really young, I always was scared sleeping by myself. Okay, I remember this from the age of 4. It's kind of weird how I could recall memories from that age. But I was always terrified of sleeping in my own room. And my mom had to put me to sleep to share a room with one of my siblings, my sisters, because I couldn't sleep by myself. I was always scared. I always thought someone was staring at me, so I was always frightened. And then I had this unusual nightmare, repetitive nightmare, where I was at my aunt's farm, and an arm would come through the window and try to pull me out of the window. And then I would dodge it by rolling off the side of the bed. I would run downstairs. The parents were playing cribbage. And then I would have to run outside as this thing is chasing me. And there's like a row of trees and an outhouse. And I had to hide in the outhouse. But I had to go and hide. So this nightmare, oh my God, it continued for years into my teens even. And a couple of times I'd have sleep paralysis. And so it kind of started there. Okay, I didn't understand what the meaning of all of that was, how it fit together until later on. So I'll kind of move past that into, and I'll just bring it up again later. Growing up, it became evident really when I was really young, my early teens, I guess maybe. I was aware of different things that would happen, like, premonitions and things like that. I'd have dreams. A dream would come and repeat itself over and over again until the incident happened. To give you an example, I had a dream that a man, he went off the side of a bridge and his legs were cut off in my dream. Oh, and it was a plane crash by a bridge, and that the body without the legs, flew in through my sister's home's window, whatever, and this body landed on top of my nephew. That was a dream I kept on having for weeks until a man crashed. It wasn't a plane crash, a car crash by the bridge right across from my sister's house. And so anyways, so apparently his legs were severed. I'm not certain about that part, and the dream stopped right after that. I had a friend another time. She went missing, and everyone was like, all the friends, all the teenagers were hanging out together trying to figure out what happened. We're all scared and talking about it. And then I saw an image flash in my mind, a vision of her in a fetal position. So I was terrified because I thought something happened to her, and it hadn't. She had actually fallen asleep, unusual circumstance, but she had fallen asleep under a stairwell at work. She went to lay down, and that's where they found her. So I didn't, it's putting those pieces together, trying to understand what you're seeing and things like that.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, you're having these dreams and then they're happening in real life. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So you thought it was a plane crash in this dream, and then later on a car crash happened in this.
Exactly where I saw it, right.
So how much time between you waking and that happening? Or did it already happen?
You mean from when I had the dream to when it actually happened?
Yeah.
Sometimes it would happen within a couple of weeks normally. At the time, when I was my teen years, so those situations would happen all the time. And then just to give you a little bit of background about my brother, my mom, her firstborn child was a boy. And he died. He was only a couple of hours old. He wasn't fully, his organs hadn't fully developed. Okay, so he died a couple of hours after he was born. And all my life, I never knew him. I was the baby of the family. There was, my siblings that came between us. But I always felt his presence around me. And every time I was upset or anything, I would sense him around me, which was kind of unusual. Like I said, no one knew him because he was the firstborn. And yet I went through this a really frightening experience in my teens. And my mom walked into the room and she says, "Here, Marianne, I think this was meant for you." And it was the cross on my brother's coffin. Okay. And she had no knowledge of that either. She just sensed that I should have it. So I'm going to be jumping a little bit just so you understand. But in my 20s, I'm going to have to jump back. I'm just going to go back later on about how my brother, I'm sorry to jump around, but you'll understand it falls into the
You do what's comfortable. Don't worry. There's no test at the end.
That's a good thing. It falls into just the part of the story in the future, what happened later on. Then I started becoming very sensitive. I noticed I was sensitive to spirits. We grew up in a haunted house. Okay, so I grew up French Catholic house, and fortunately, I had sisters and my parents are actually kind of open to it. They never had their own experiences, but they're open to discussing with us. So we'd sit around the table Sunday, dinner time, and we talk about all these like wild paranormal experiences that we had in our family. And so we were really comfortable and open, which is really a great thing because I have a lot of clients that come to me and they have no one to turn to, no support. And that's why you're here too, for those people who don't are uncomfortable to discuss it, or they get humiliated, mocked for bringing these things up. So I appreciate that I was the weird girl because a lot of people knew that I was the one to turn to if they had anything that they wanted to discuss without being ridiculed, someone to listen to them. And I still get that today, that people just reach out to me and because they've seen some of my posts or something with my business or whatever, just my personal post talking about the subject. So they know I'm a safe person to talk to. And that's what I want to do. I want to be that safe person for people to turn to. So we would discuss it, but our house was haunted. And my first experience with spirit, like on a personal level, it was my grandpa. It was a month after he passed away. It was over the Christmas holidays. And I was gone to bed already. My sister was in the basement. And as I learned later, things were starting to move around the house. And she intuitively sensed that it was my grandpa. And then she heard footsteps and things upstairs. And when she came to sleep, she was afraid. And she came to sleep with me, came in bed with me because she was too scared to sleep on her own. And she asked me, she just told me this later because I don't have any recollection of this. She said, was that you walking upstairs, Marianne? I said, no, it was papa, which means grandpa in French. I said, he came to talk to me. And she said, what did he say? And I said, it's too complicated. I'll tell you in the morning. The next day, again, I had no recollection of it. It turns out my other sibling also had her own experiences. She just had some vision that she saw of my grandparents' clock. So it took some time. I always wanted to know why my grandpa came to talk to me, and why me, why come talk to me. He was closer to my siblings and my cousins than I was. And I only learned later through an intuitive reader. She explained that he came to tell me that he was concerned and he wanted to get a message across to my grandma, his wife, and to tell her that not to worry, that he made it across. And I didn't understand the meaning behind that at all until I spoke to some family members. And I learned that in his later years, my grandma was concerned if he had a couple of drinks or something that he was drinking too much, the old strong Catholic faith and stuff. And so, but my guides had apparently prevented me from having that message. I would have been way too young, as if you can go to your grandma and tell her, grandma, grandpa said he's okay, not to worry about him. He made it through. And so that, that's how my understanding was that I was stopped from getting that information. So I found it, and it really made sense when I heard that, because it resonated, and it made sense with what I had heard from the family members, about the story about my grandpa. So that was my first experience with the mediumship. Okay. The mediumship, if you will, him trying to communicate with me. I did have other experiences later on. It turns out I had a spirit come to me to tell me that my cousin was pregnant. My cousin had been trying to conceive and had trouble conceiving. And so just before, I don't really want to get into particulars about who it was, but just before he passed away, he came to me and said that with every death there's a birth, and that she was pregnant. And as it turns out, although she had been trying to conceive for a long time, she ended up getting pregnant, and she had, her miracle baby, right? So what a beautiful message. I was so blessed to be part of that experience. And then after that, it seemed like every time there's a pregnancy, I would have a dream. And it's really odd how these dreams present themselves for me, for the birth. And I wake up from an extremely depressing dream. It feels like I'm dreaming of someone's death. Isn't that odd? It's the reverse. I don't know why it comes like that to me, but that's the way it would present itself to me. Okay. I'd wake up about someone's death, and I'd wake up, that a really heavy feeling, and I would know that was a pregnancy. And at the time, I know it's a little weird. Well, I don't understand why it's reversed like that, but
we don't really know how it's supposed to happen. You're the one with the contact, right? So maybe that's normal. That could be normal. It's just not what we would expect from what we understand in this reality.
Right, exactly. And you take it the way it is. There's no right or wrong way for people to receive the messages. And sometimes people, I've even had conversations with a group of psychics who will tell me, oh, I wish I got my messages like you, received them like you. And the other one, oh, I wish I saw them. And the other one, oh, I wish I would, experience it the way you do. Even in at the round table of the psychics, we all have our own, oh, I wish I was like that, or I would see it the way that you do. I find it really interesting. So it's kind of a neat conversation, right? How everyone gets that information. So those things started happening with the pregnancies, and that was one of the things that would start coming. And I'm just trying to think. And then the haunted house. I've lived in a few haunted places before. I moved into an apartment, and it was funny because the night before I signed the lease, I had a dream that a man died in my apartment. Okay, that was in Winnipeg where I live. A man died in my apartment. That was the dream, and that he was going to haunt me there. So the next day, I go sign the lease at the apartment, and the lady, as I'm signing it, I said, "Can you tell me, did someone die in my apartment?" And she was silent, and she completely ignored me. So I asked her again. I asked her, did someone die in the apartment? And she ignored me again. I think I asked her like 3 times, and finally she said, "Oh, he was such a nice man and everything." She said, who told you? And I said, I had a dream. And she didn't believe me because she kept on asking me, who told you? I learned later that she told the staff there, that like the caretakers in the apartment, that they weren't supposed to discuss it with anybody. So a man died in my suite, and they only found him a few days later in the washroom. So I go move in, and immediately things started happening. I started dating a guy at the time, and when he died in the washroom, like I was saying, when I went into the washroom and I was getting ready, also it was the creepiest thing. I felt an arm around my waist, and I thought it was my boyfriend at the time coming home. So I turned around and I looked, and there was nobody there. And there was a stench in the washroom. It's this kind of sad too, but a stench in the washroom from his death because he had been there a few days. And I had to find out what to do to clean it out. It was pure Javex. I knew someone that worked in the pathology lab, and they told me to use pure Javex. It's the only thing that worked to get rid of the smell. But I always felt like I was being watched in that apartment. It was frightening. And then one time I was in the kitchen, and then I went into the living room, and a couple minutes later I go back in the kitchen. All the kitchen cupboard doors were all open. And what else happened in that thing? Just a bunch of things. And so one day we set up a camera. I believe I said to you, I got laughed at a lot because I took pictures inside a washroom, but took a picture and set a camera up facing the washroom with a candle burning in the background, just so we have a bit of light. And then we connected the camera to a TV so we can watch it in real time. Okay. And my cat was sitting back there watching.
That's kind of smart. I like that.
Watching into the washroom. She just sat there watching. Yeah. And all of a sudden, when we started speaking to the man that passed away there, because my boyfriend at the time had met him before, as we're watching and we started communicating with him, telling him, you don't have to stay here, and just trying to open a conversation with him. All of a sudden, the camera went completely out of focus. And if you saw my cat, she was sitting behind the TV watching, and all of a sudden her eyes shifted as she's watching something, as if it came out of the washroom and went into the bedroom. And then she watched as it came back. Then it went out of focus again, and then it cleared up. So the picture I sent in the email, I don't know if you noticed it, but there's a before and after image of when it went out of focus. So
I'm just scrolling through. I'm listening to you. I'm just
so
looking at the other screen.
Yeah. After that night, that was the end. We told him, to move on, and everything was okay. And so he left, but it was pretty scary, like living in that and having all these things happen in the apartment. I've never had that much activity before in my life, especially when I was touched. That was a really eerie feeling. It was as solid as feeling a person's arm around me, a human person's body, wrap their arms around my waist.
Okay. I found the picture. So let me just share the screen for.
Like I said, I got laughed at. Pictures of a toilet, but you can see.
Yeah. So sorry about the background.
I
wasn't really.
You can even expand the second one, maybe, or whatever.
Well, I'm trying to do that without showing all your stuff here, but if you're okay with that.
Oh, it doesn't matter yet. Free for all.
Okay.
So that's
all right. So I can make that's as big as I can make.
Yeah.
That for now.
Good. So that was my apartment where the man passed away, and then the second one is the foggy one. You can see the difference. And so that was a screenshot from the VHS, because that's what we were using at the time, right? The old VHS video camera. So, and that's when my cat was following it out of the washroom. So
interesting. So with the candle, you said, so this is a candle that's lit then, right? Or a light.
You know what? I'm guessing because it was on that side. Is that the glow from it right away? You know what?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is how it's blurred, but the light's still in focus. So
you know what? I'm not certain if that is the light, because I thought it was lower, like lower. So I'm not certain if that's the light, if that's just a reflection. That one.
It's interesting.
To be fair, yeah. But this is where all of a sudden, as soon as we started speaking, it went completely out of focus. And then that's when the cat was following. So it's kind of neat to capture pictures, even though, I don't know,
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Strange to take.
It's that's the thing, right? Like it sees things that we can't, and you set it up right. As far as an experiment would go, and you tried to capture something, and you activated the ability, or however that works, and then you got a response. So the trouble that we have in this is there's no validation to confirm if that response was technical or spiritual. Like it could be either or.
Absolutely, I get that.
Yeah. But it's still a good coincidence as far as the timing in between. And we do have other science that shows, and I'm sure you know too, with you doing Reiki on animals as well. That animals do have the ability to sense spirits as well, or something
absolutely.
in other dimensions.
You know what? Absolutely. My cat, that cat was so sensitive. And like I said, she was following it. Whatever she was looking at was following it. But my other cat right now too, I've had him chatter in the hallway. He'll just sit there, look up and start chattering. And one time I just sensed a presence. And then I looked at my cat. I was in my room and I look at him. He jumped off the floor. He was turned facing the corner of the wall, looking up, chatting, like beep, 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 right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he got scared and he jumped like a big fat cat, all four off the ground, because whatever it was, it really startled him. And so I've had that before a few times with him. And that cat, the first one in that apartment in 1994, my cat was 19 years old, or a month shy of 19 when she passed away. And the night that she died, I was in the bedroom, and by the ensuite, I could hear her jump on the toilet, jump on the counter where her watering bowl was. That's what she did every day. I put fresh water up on the counter, spoiled cat, up by the sink. And that's what she'd do. She'd jump up on the toilet and jump up on the counter. So it was really, really neat too, because I could hear her. That was the only time she came to visit. I also had some pet hens. Okay, I love chickens. Okay. Incredible pets, yeah. And I had brought them to they told the farmers they were going to butcher the chickens. They keep them a couple of years and they butchered them. So after I brought the chickens over there, I looked out my patio door and I saw them. I saw my I saw one of the two chickens only. And I thought, that's really weird. I must be imagining it because I could only see one of the birds, right? And I learned later that one of the birds, they missed taking him to the butchers. And so there was only one bird that died. So when I saw the one chicken instead of the two, like I assumed there should be, that was the reason why, because there was only one that had been captured. They missed one. So it's it's pretty neat.
That's neat. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So as I continue, like for me after those experiences, so one of the scary or more frightening experiences I had was my cousin's house. So every time I was really connected with her, every time something weird would happen at her home, something seemed to simultaneously happen at my place too. So she'd kind of call me up. We had this relationship. She'd call me up and say, "Hey, Marianne, anything happening at your place? My house is acting up." And it was happening simultaneously, you would say, right? So one day she asked me to come to her house because things were flaring up and all kinds of crazy things. Like she'd be cutting something on the cutting board and then all of a sudden she'd turn around and then she'd look back and it was missing. And sometimes she didn't tell me this part of the time, but she would find it in another part of the house. All right. So she asked me to go to her house to see if I could pick up on anything. Just like I said, I was very sensitive to energies around the house. So I came in through the front door, walked through the rooms, the living room, the bathroom. I didn't sense anything. Through the kitchen, I didn't feel anything at all. But as I was walking out the house, I exited through the side door. And then that's when it hit me. It felt like I got hit with a bat from behind. I turned around, I looked downstairs. I said, that's where it's coming from. So I went downstairs and I pinpointed the area that I felt where the energy was coming from. And it was by her furnace, right? And she admitted that that's where things were reappearing by her furnace. So events were continuing like that. And so, stupid ass, my other cousin came and we decided to take out the Ouija board. Okay. My kids aren't allowed to use it anymore. So we took the Ouija board out, and we thought, I had this image pop in my mind of a POW. I believe there was a POW.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I have to go back a little bit. It wasn't a POW. When we were asking the questions, I don't remember what the questions were. It was an SS. It looked like a military man, and my other cousin thought it was an SS soldier.
Okay.
And I'm going to get these things. There's so many different things, events that happened in this experience, so I might get them mixed up here. But
it's okay.
It was the military. My cousin, by the way I was describing it, thought it was SS. And then we saw two military men escort this man to, and then all of a sudden it was like a flame, okay, like a big fire. So after we did this, we're trying to tell the spirit to go into the light, like you kind of see in the movies, being naive, not understanding what you're doing, just kind of horsing around. Well, I shouldn't say horsing around, but thinking we're doing the right thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're proud of ourselves talking about it. And in the meantime, my other cousin went to the washroom. She came back running and grabbed me and said, "Look at my eyes, the answers in my eyes." And that's when I saw a POW. This really, really thin man, right? And he was in baggy clothing, just standing there. So we assumed that it was like a POW that died and didn't accept his death. And so as we're sitting there after that, kind of, patting ourselves on the shoulder, oh yeah, we helped him to go into the light and everything, I had this really eerie feeling. And I remember telling them that I felt like, just keep your guard up. I just felt like something was going on. Something was going to happen. Like I felt like we were being ambushed. That's probably the right word to use. We were being ambushed. And one cousin was sitting behind the table, kind of back against the wall, the other one on one side, and I had my back to the kitchen. And there was 1.2. We smelled, my cousin says, "Oh, it smells like gasoline." And I'm like, yeah, I could smell it. The smell was getting so strong in the house. And all of a sudden the other cousin said, "Oh no, it smells like kerosene." She identified it as kerosene specifically, right? And that was nauseating. And then there was a brief moment also of smelling like burning flesh. It was really repulsive, and that left. But as we're sitting around the table and I'm telling them, keep your guard up, something's wrong. All of a sudden I saw my cousin behind the table. She jumped up and she's screaming, kicking her legs. And this is like the movies, it's crazy. But the other cousin literally jumped over the chair, ran outside, and I turned around to run away, but I knew something told me, if you run away now, fear is going to take over, and this thing is going to win through fear, right? We know the power of fear, what it does. So I turned around and I told it to leave. I said, you can't bother, like, leave us alone, go away. And so one cousin ran into the bedroom, the other one outside. I chased her. And I told her, and she was just praying and crying, hysterical outside. I told her she had to come back in the house and we had to face this. So we went in, got my other cousin, grabbed the dog, and we left. Thank God the kids weren't there that day, because I don't know what would have happened. So we left. I didn't realize what had happened other than hearing the screams and one of them kicking the legs. When we left, they told me I hadn't felt anything physically. One had red marks across the calves, as if something came through the floor and grabbed her calves. You could see like handprints across her legs. The other cousin said that when she went to reach to help, she felt something pull her back and had a red mark across her chest. When I asked after how long it lasted, I said, "Oh, it lasted a few hours." She said it lasted a couple of days. And red marks. This is the first time I've ever seen anyone marked. So I would have been 18, maybe 19 at the time when that happened, right? Another time I had gone to visit, a priest did come to this house and blessed it twice. Okay. So that was one of the things that happened. I had gone to watch a movie after that even, and the lights went on and off by themselves. And we looked at each other and we're like, no, we didn't want to accept that, oh my God, it's still here, right? That this was still happening. One of my good friends, one of my best friends, I was telling her about this haunted house and she didn't believe me. So I brought her with me there. And as we're sitting around the table, something was going on. She recalls, what I've done is I've collected all the stories everyone's point of view, and I put it all together in the book, in my book. I could discuss after, but so when we were sitting there talking about the house, a bag of chips that was behind us on the fridge went, like, there was no animal, nothing that could have done that. The bag of chips went flying across the kitchen. Okay, so a reminder that whatever it was still there. I had friends, two psychics, come in with me into the house to help us out to see what was going on. And one of them described that man that I saw, really thin man, with the baggy clothing, because he was so thin, right? And so he had seen the same man that I had seen. So just a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago, a year ago, I spoke to an intuitive who told me about this house when I was discussing it. She had a flash that what the story was is that my cousin, who's blonde, and okay, let me see how she explained it. She said that during the war, this was like a World War II, and that because she was blonde, she was with her partner or husband or whatever, she told the guards that she was actually German.
Okay.
To escape her death, right? And she let, like, whatever, to save herself, and her partner died, and it was him that was bitter and resentful against her for doing that. So that is how it was explained to me, and that would make sense to me too. It resonated too. So that was a really scary experience. After that, it took me some time to calm down, settle down. After that, it was a really frightening experience, right? But I find that whenever we go through these things, I'm sure you've probably, had similar experiences. Some things are really scary or whatever, but every time something like this happens to you, it really helps you to be able to help someone else with the same situation in the future. You're more educated, you're more informed, and they give you the ability to help people after that too, who go through the same thing, right? So people ask me to go through their homes in the past to see if I pick up on anything in their homes and stuff like that. So I've helped people in those situations as well too. So I've had the scary stuff, I've had the premonitions and different things like that. So that was good. But after 25 years of service with the travel industry, I took early retirement. Something had to give. I was overwhelmed. I was divorced, living from my house, basically, paying the bills for a house by myself after the divorce. And things changed, and I needed to take some time for my family, take some time off, and take some time for myself. I was overstretched. So what I did is I took early retirement, much to my dad's chagrin, because he didn't want me to, what are you doing, right? Why are you risking your future, taking early retirement and losing a lot of money doing that? So I made that choice, and then I retired. I sold my home in the city, that, more than I could ever afford. And I took my kids. That was hard for them, but I took my kids out to the country, and I downsized. And I finally had a little bit more time for myself as well as for my kids. And during that period, I started taking courses and stuff like that of interest. I ended up opening my business. It's called The Doorway in 2014. I had taken the Reiki, hypnotherapy, and I'll explain about the hypnotherapy, how that came to be, because in 1994, I was actually regressed to. I was someone's guinea pig when they were practicing or learning how to do hypnotherapy.
Okay.
I didn't know what hypnotherapy, or if I even believed in regressions or reincarnations at the time. So, but I was still I tried it out, and I had very successful experiences. I recall I went through the time in Africa, and I saw myself when I died. I was quite young, but I knew it was natural. I was up on scaffolding during a full moon, and they burnt me when I died. And it was really fascinating. It didn't surprise me I went to Africa, because all the decor in my home at the time had African motif. So that was really neat, And so that was the one in Africa. I went to one in, where was I? In Scotland. And in that lifetime, my father had died at sea. And it was amazing because I still have that sketch I did of those past lives. So every time I have a new client come in, I always show them what I did. And I always, recommend that they draw what their experiences are, because from 1994, I have my sketches, right?
Drawings are very important. A lot of people don't think of drawing. They think they must have to take pictures and things like that. So that's good. Good for you.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's a great way to share. You know what I mean? Sharing your experiences. Probably people don't.
It's an expression too, because then you're looking at it and then you're like, that was in my mind, and then wow, this is real, or that's silly, or it helps. It helps too.
You know what? The one in Scotland. So it starts off, I drew out my house, the interior of the house, and my mom's screaming for me because I'm sitting looking out at the ocean. And because my dad died at sea, she was really upset with me, and she knew I was drawn to the water, and she didn't want me to be. She didn't want to lose me too. So in my life, I felt I had to take care of my mom. And so I remember so many details. It was crazy about being in a quick relationship, but my girlfriend had left me. I was male in that lifetime. My girlfriend had left me because I didn't want to leave my mom. You know what I mean? And so I felt indebted to her. So I did metal work. I remember that too. I had my, I can't even think of the word right now, so I'm just going to move it. I had died when I went back into regression. I saw myself dead in bed, and I had died of alcoholism because I died of loneliness after my mom died, and I was quite young. I looked like Brutus from Popeye. That's what I looked like. And yeah, it's funny. So I had died of alcoholism. Well, what I find interesting is that in this lifetime, 13 years ago, I quit drinking. Okay. So I always wondered if there was an association there with that, like the karma from that past life and that experience. And in this lifetime, how I quit drinking too. So I always kind of put those two together and made sense to me. Okay. Another thing in that those regressions, those first ones, I described all of a sudden I was traveling by 3 planets on the left side of 3 planets or stars or whatever it was, right? And all of a sudden I hesitated, and I snapped out of the regression, and I never knew what that was about until later on when I was taking my training and I went for my own regressions, right? My own experiences. So how that came to be is when I had this time off for myself after I left the airline, whatever. After I left, I went for my own regression because I had really low self-esteem, and I went to find out what the root cause of my low self-esteem was. So I went to see the hypnotherapist, and when he brought me back, it was really amazing because you know those things when you don't know what the answer is going to be and it really shocks you. So during my regression, what surfaced, he asked me, okay, so is this from a past lifetime, the root cause, or a current lifetime? Because a regression doesn't have to be from a past lifetime, right? And I said from the current one, okay, before your birth, during your birth, after your birth. I said during my birth. And I was being born, and as soon as I was born, I sensed that my mom loathed me and that my dad was disappointed because my parents had their son that they lost, and my mom felt I was the last chance for her to have a boy, to give her husband a son. And that was the reason why I always felt like I wasn't good enough. And I wouldn't have even thought of that. I was hoping I was Cleopatra, something exciting, Again, you want this grand experience, but it's with regressions, it's not always that, right? We're trying to find the root cause of that, and that's where it brought me to. Then all of a sudden, I said to the hypnotherapist, I said, my brother's here. And he says, your brother's there? He says, what do you mean? Is your brother deceased? I said, yeah, he's passed away. And I said, he's coming to me. And he said to me, the reason why I always felt him around, do you remember I was saying I was sensed him around before, was because I would be the one suffering the most because of his death. And so that's why he was around me all the time to support me. So I thought that was so beautiful, right? So I went home. I couldn't ask my parents because obviously they wouldn't want to admit that, to their child. But it made sense because, the old traditional belief of, you have to have a son to carry on the family name and those kind of things. So I knew my parents would never want to admit it, and I'm not holding any animosity about that either. But it explained my relationship with my brother as well too. That brought me that understanding as well. So I took a couple of weeks before I could share it with anybody, with my partner, because I had to digest what I had just learned, right? But after that, that's what drew me to taking my own hypnotherapy training. I wanted to offer that to people so they can experience what I had experienced. And, not everybody believes in past lives or reincarnation. And what's important or not important is that you don't have to believe in reincarnations to reap the benefits from the hypnosis. What's important, sometimes people can think that or believe that it's only the way, like a way for the subconscious to present the information to you, so in a way that you'll understand it, right? So it'll give you the information to make it look like a past life, or like a storyline, if you will. And it doesn't matter if you believe in the reincarnation or not, we're still doing the work. And as long as you get the message, that's how you get the healing, and you can really benefit from it. So although I believe in reincarnation, I don't expect my clients to. And it's not a matter of which faith you are, what religion you are. I always ask my clients, like, what's your belief system? And I always, tell them it doesn't matter what you believe in. I've had every, faith denomination come through my office. So, whether you're a Buddhist or Muslim, Catholic, it doesn't matter. But I like to use, the reason I ask them is only because, if they want to share it, is only because that way I can use words in my scripts when I create a script for the clients, and use words that resonate with them. It's really important that we respect, and there's a lot of lack of that, respect everybody's belief systems and support that, right? I'm not here to make someone change their mind about what their belief system is. I just want to be there, available to support them with whatever that is. And that's really, really important, right?
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And because we have various opinions on many things and subjects, and people really are intent on their belief, and even though those beliefs can't be proven, they also believe them so much that they're willing to defend it, even though there's no evidence to do so as well. So if you're able to make them feel comfortable, then that's a really good thing. For me, regression, like I've experimented, I've seen it, I've used it as a tool. From an investigative point of view, I would refer someone to a regression hypnotherapist if I got somewhere into my investigative process where there's a blockage in the mind. So we kind of want to see what's beyond that blockage and understand what that blockage is, not looking for anything in particular, just trying to go past that moment in which they're stuck, that stuck point. And sometimes the information that comes through, as raw as it is, it's not always ET. Sometimes it's people. Sometimes it's trauma. Sometimes it's like trauma from other sources.
Yeah, you were describing that before in the last week, right? Talking about how something else surfaced, for sure.
So how would you handle that? Like say I don't have no other way to really explain it, but say they think they're abducted by an alien, and you do some regression, and then all of a sudden you ask for the description of the person or the entity, and it's described as a human that looks like someone that they know, and they're talking about sexual abuse. Like how would you handle that?
So I will explain exactly. So here's something. When you ask him to describe, you said the being or doing whatever. So I have to be careful how I say this, because, or I want to explain this clearly, I should say, is that, like forensic style investigations, right? So you can't ask, did you see an entity? So just to be clear, I have to make sure that when I ask,
so no open-ended question. So what do you see? No
open-ended and no suggestions. So if they did not describe or mention having seen an entity, I will not ask if they saw an entity. I'll ask them just to describe, what are you seeing? Can you describe anything? Whatever. So that's called forensic style questioning, and that's what I do. But also, I mean, sometimes when clients come, you got to remember that our subconscious is there to also protect us, right? My role, there's different reasons why they come, but my role is not to try to push to get everything out in one shot. I'm not trying to create a story. I'm not trying to create a book. I'm here to protect the client, right? I know a lot of people, they want to have all that information all at once. I don't think that that's necessarily the best approach when you're doing this, because you can traumatize them. You have to be careful what you're dealing with and understand your client, understand their needs, what their desire, their intentions, because not everybody wants to have all the information at once. Sometimes it's just to find out if what they experienced was real or not. Again, it's not to push to the point of, damaging them. I could create PTSD, more trauma to them, by continuously pushing the envelope. Sometimes their subconscious will do that, and to prevent us from, it doesn't have to be with experiencers. It could be with anybody. I've had a client, all of a sudden, they said they're on the beach and there's a huge cement wall that just all of a sudden appeared. And you know what? I recognized it right away when they were talking. I said, I can't get around this wall. And it wasn't time. If it's not, I wouldn't feel right pushing them into getting that answer. Obviously, they're not ready. And I'm not going to be that person. I'm not going to be that hypnotherapist to push those boundaries. I understand there's ways to get around it. But again, cautiously, and I have to be informed before they come to deal with that stuff, right?
There's a lot of liability, and that's good that you take those precautions. It's good that you care that much. It's good that you acknowledge all those risks before you engage, and you spend all this time being prepared to and I like that you said that you're not here to write a book, you're not here to make a circus out of it. You're there to treat, you're there to care, you're there to help, and there are some people that do this pseudoscience, this regression, and they do abuse it. Because sometimes, we don't have to get into details about cost and things like that too. But I mean, even time is valuable to some people. So some should be valuable to everybody. But so there's a lot of hidden methods or motives behind these techniques and things like that too. So what I'm hearing is that your priority is above all is taking care of the individual, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to push a client. I mean, I would rather them return a couple of times when they're ready. Sometimes just a little bit will come through, and then they're a little bit overwhelmed after it happens, and they're still questioning and stuff. So there's a lot of dynamics to what's presenting itself. I have heard of situations where some of my clients have said that someone's approached them, I'll regress you and, try to get more information. And that kind of sounds the alarms for me. I get a little bit concerned that
they might as well put on a police uniform, walk up and ask them questions and interrogate them. You want them to feel comfortable. I just want to be careful, and I want them to be careful. So I always say, be careful, even how much you share publicly on sometimes on certain times, because again, I don't think that it's for their best interest, for their well-being, if I push through, or if someone pushes through to get everything all at once. I think that is overwhelming, especially due to the circumstances, right? And that can lead into your Reiki as well. If they're feeling uneasy afterwards, you can calm them down.
I've had to too. So I'm going to share an experience I had with a client that came in once. So not knowing what was going to surface, because I didn't expect this was going to come out at all. Client came because they were very stressed out. They were having panic attacks all the time. and they came for a regression to try to uncover why this was happening. So I will say to you, Ryan, more of my clients that have come have been what we refer to as starseed versus the experiencer. Okay. And I'm not one who gets really stuck on the words and terminology, because it's finding out,
it's interesting because I was asked that question on my lunchtime video on, I think, Monday, my opinion on starseed. So what's your, and now I'm hearing it here at the end of the week. So that's weird because we never really.
That's why it's coming up. I'm sure, because that's how that works, right? Things we learn information or hear about something right at the same
So what
time.
is a starseed to you though? What is it by definition? How is that?
Someone coming from like elsewhere, another planet. We've all come from elsewhere, but that have come to do some work on this planet, to assist on the planet.
Okay.
And when this client came through, all of a sudden this information of experiences on other planets, or we have parallel lifetimes as well too, that we can experience multiple lifetimes that happen simultaneously. My understanding is that's a way that we can have more experiences all at once. You know what I mean? So we can do more work, but people have different reasons why they come to Earth to have, like, to come to help, right? And they don't have to be big, grand reasons. It doesn't have to be a big, grand purpose. It could be something simple, just as being that beacon of light, of support for some of the people that are here. So I found a lot of clients that come, even unknowingly, discover that they've come from another planet. They've been assigned to come here to help on different levels, to do different things. That was, like I said, I didn't even know when I started hypnosis, hypnotherapy, what that was. I wasn't even familiar with starseed until later on, when I started doing more research, because I couldn't understand why so many of these people were coming to my door. I found it really. Is that your?
That's me. I got.
Yeah.
Busy area today.
So this client that came to me that was having anxiety attacks, it turns out it was connected to an experience from a past life or a parallel life. It's hard to tell them apart, on another planet, as a being on another planet. And after that, it came to light. I don't want to get into the specifics because
that's okay.
I don't feel right sharing that right now. But so we did get an understanding of why she was experiencing this. But at the end of that session, or it could have been her following session, she said something really interesting. She said, the client that's coming to see you, the reason they're afraid of snakes isn't because of the snakes. They're afraid of the reptilians. It's the eyes and the tongue. And I was freaking out because I was surprised to hear that, right? So it had nothing to do with snakes. The fear was because of the reptilians. A couple of days later, the other client comes in. I never discussed it with the client. And as we're doing the regression, I was not able to regress them. And after the session, we sat at the table. And like I said, unfortunately, I wasn't able to regress this client. As we're sitting there, I said, yeah, it's really, we dealt with other concerns that we had in the session, but we weren't able to address this fear of snakes. That was the thing, right? As we're sitting there discussing it, all of a sudden they said, yeah, I don't understand. I've always been afraid of reptilians. I said, pardon me? And she says, I've always been afraid of reptilians. I said, did you just hear what you said? And she said, no. I said, you didn't say reptiles. You didn't say snakes. You said reptilians. And I didn't push it. I just left it, because if they weren't able to, if they were blocked at that point, it wasn't my place to start feeding the information to them. But it was the client beforehand that had warned me that this was what the case was. So that was Yeah, that was really interesting. That was pretty
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of coincidence. So we have to get to commercial. So
Yes.
what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna intro the commercial. It's about 5 minutes. I'm just telling you because you haven't done this before, and then you can just take a little bit of a break. But we'll be back in a few minutes. Okay?
Awesome. Thanks.
Is that okay? You're doing great. This is amazing. All right, I just gotta find my thing. So we'll pause right here, but we will continue after a message from our professional partners. Also, if you're listening to this live on KPNL Radio or future podcasts, head over to youtube.com/The Experiencer Support Association to see the video that goes with the audio. Remember that you are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, which is a podcast by the Experiencer Support Association, and we'll be right back.
Ryan is one of Canada's leading new UFO investigators. He conducts and oversees UFO investigations on a constant basis and was really taken by his research. He's compiled a tremendous amount of data regarding UFOs in Canada. And just as interesting, he really goes over how UFO investigations are done and what are some of the mistakes that people make when they submit evidence. Note for starters, don't edit your videos or photos before you send them. If you want to hear more follow-up conversation between Ryan and myself, you can go to richardolanmembers.com where we have a candid conversation on ufology, the paranormal, and more. And remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth, let's be good to each other.
The same thing that draws aliens to our planet is the same thing that draws us to others. Exploration, curiosity, sustainability of life. That's why we go. It would make sense as to why they're visiting here.
Travis! Quit playing around, man. Get back here. Travis!
The last thing I remember was this numbing shock. Stunning sort of a feeling. Very powerful.
Get away from me!
I was just out of my mind with fear, just screaming the whole time.
It's been theorized that aliens prefer remote areas because they don't want to attract attention. Whatever it is that they're doing, they would want to do that in a less populated area. There are multiple accounts of the same thing from people from all over the world. People that do not know each other, do not live in the same cultures, and they're all looking up, they're all seeing things in the sky. So it would be naive of us to think that we're alone in the universe.
My mission is to assist and help those experiencing this phenomenon in such a way that they're able to continue and live with it, and also in a way that it can be measured, quantified, and reinforced within today's society, so that way it can be accepted and no longer viewed in a negative way. One thing that I do value in people is the ability to sense and feel when something is right and when something is wrong. That is a natural ability that we all share. Now, when we combine that with the paranormal and ufological abductions or visits, I have the sensation that these abilities are connected. Not everyone can sense, not everyone can feel. However, those who can are typically connected with something that we cannot explain. And part of my research, it's not just to investigate the experience, but it's also to understand and study the experiencer to find out what they have in common with other experiencers, to try to figure out what the actual makeup is in order to be on that spectrum. There's a lot of it happening all over the world, and I do not know of any other study that is focusing on the individuals as people, only the phenomenon. Welcome back. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. If you're enjoying this episode so far, please, my mic's going to fall on my lap. Please consider becoming a member of our channel or send us a super chat. Your membership will get you bonus content like exclusive videos and will help us reach our goal of launching our training center, Interstellar, the Academy of Ufology and Paranormal Studies. Also, if you've ever experienced an unexplained event involving the paranormal, UFOs, extraterrestrials, dogman, or any other paracryptid, head over to tessacan.org/reporting system. The more reports we get, the more we will understand this phenomenon and how it affects our people. Let the others who have already reported be that example that proves we are making a difference. And if it wasn't for those reports, we would not be able to do what we do. And for that, we thank you. All right. How are you doing? You got a flow going. You got more, or can I throw a question?
I got lots more. Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely. Well, then keep going. Keep going.
So before I continue on, I'm going to really dig in deep into the UFO aspect of this. But I was going to tell you about a night I went with my daughter to the Hotel Fort Garry in Winnipeg. All right. Okay. It's known to be haunted. So it was just kind of a fun night that we went out there. You know, you watch all these shows like Ghost Adventures and you think you're going to be the next like big star, right? So we went. I had a Mel meter, the Mel meter, and my digital recorder. And so we went. My daughter would have been about 16 at the time. And we headed off and I placed the digital recorder. Yeah, there we go. So that the top one is the baseline temperature at the beginning of the night. That was by the closet where this woman apparently committed suicide.
I love that you did a baseline. A lot of people don't realize that you have to understand what's normal before you start measuring. Because if you have a high pitch at the beginning, you're going to have a high pitch everywhere you go. So you dial it down. So that's good. Thank you.
You like the little tape on the floor too, on the carpet, eh?
Yeah, no.
I saw that on Ghost Adventures. They put tape on the floor. So
there are some tactics. They're not. I don't know.
I'm just teasing. That was me trying to be a big professional ghost hunter that day.
It's okay. It marks the spot. It's organizational skills. Ghost Adventures didn't invent it. They only invented tight T-shirts and conversation.
Yeah, it worked though. Got them rich. So
it sells. Yeah.
That was the beginning of the night. So we put that there, and I left my digital recorder running the entire night. Okay. So we sat there and we were waited. A few family members came in. So that comes later. So we had family members come through to look at the room because it was a really old room that hadn't been renovated or anything like that, because that's how they make their money, renting out this haunted room. My daughter and I left the room after that, and we went to the pool area, and then we came back after, and right soon after we came back, the Mel meter went off. The only problem is we had a bunch of cameras, a bunch of new batteries and everything. 3 cameras died. All the batteries died at once, and the Mel meter battery died as well too. So we're freaking out, and you can hear us in the recording. Because I had the digital recording, you can hear us yelling, swearing, saying all kinds of obscene things because we missed the Mel meter going off. And so I changed the batteries in the Mel meter, and then a couple minutes later, it went off again. And my daughter had the old stuff like flip cell phones kind of thing. She grabbed that was plugged in the wall, fortunately. And she was able to capture it. So these are just screenshots. They're not very clear, but because they're screenshots of a crappy video. And it showed the temperature went up to 31 and then 43. The next one, I believe.
Is this Celsius? Celsius?
Yeah, I guess it would be, right?
That's really hot.
And then it dropped. Look at the next one.
Yeah, down to
12.9. And then it jumped back to the regular temperature. Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
That happened within like 30 seconds. So did I feel anything in the temperature? No, it happened so fast. And after that, when I went home, so that happened. My daughter tried to keep me up all night. We scared ourselves crazy, right? And I was terrified. And you're not going to fall asleep, are you, Mom? And I'm like, oh my God, it's like 3 a.m. at that point. I was just exhausted. So we finally went to sleep. The next day, I was reviewing all the audio. And on the audio, I could hear this whistling, but we left the TV going for the sound in the background because we were so scared, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't sure it sounded louder than the recording on the TV, the sounds on the TV, but I didn't think anything of it until I was at home and I heard whistling. I was walking through Safeway shopping one day and I could hear whistling. And then another time was at work. I'm walking through the hallway at work. I heard whistling. And then the last time I was at my mom's place, I was in the washroom and I heard the whistling, the same like I heard on this audio. It was so loud. And I remember saying, Mom, was that you guys whistling? I'm screaming. Eh? And my dad cracked a joke in the other room. And I came out and I said, I'm serious. Tell me the truth. Like, was that you guys whistling outside? And I'm like, no, we didn't do anything, right? That's when I knew I brought an attachment with me from the hotel. And so it wasn't anything menacing or anything. It was just, someone interested in getting out, I guess, for a ride. But so I had to do a clearing in my home to get it to go. And then said, you can't stay with me, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was my first experience with an attachment too. I've never had that before, and it just taught me to be more careful. But when we were there, one thing that really affected me right away was that, again, just doing like the movies. Oh, come out here, show me that you're there, right? And right, because that's what you see on TV. I never had so much remorse, Ryan. I apologized for months after that. I kept on apologizing to Spirit for mistreating it like that. Like it was just like
you're gambling. Like that's what comes back to the ghost adventures. Like when they taunt that, like, I mean, let's assume that ghosts are real. Like it's just as a matter of fact, if you bother them, they will cause harm.
Like I didn't feel harm, but it was just I for me it was more being disrespectful to a being, right? An entity that was a living being and stuff. So I apologize, and I've never ever done anything like that again. And so it really helped me grow as a person to be kinder to Spirit, right? So I will go into how this all played out for the UFO stuff.
Okay.
So when I was taking all my courses, I did take mediumship course, and I was offering mediumship for a while. In the last couple of years in my lifetime, I've had a lot of stuff happening. So it's kind of a bit harder to focus. So I stopped offering the mediumship for a while. But at the time when I was doing it, I had a client come in and they had asked me if, like, as well as just to try to connect with their mom, I believe it was, aside from just doing like the mediumship reading, they asked me also if it was true that what their parent had stated about their experiences with UFOs. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, okay, I'll try to find out. So when mom started coming through, the information was just flowing through and all this, whatever, the connection to this and that. And I was sharing that. And as soon as I asked the question about the UFO, it was like a deliberate attempt to block me. I've never felt anything like that before. It was my first experience like that. It felt like a wall went up saying, you're not supposed to go across this, right? Okay. And I told the client that. I said, I'm sorry, I don't understand why, because all the information was flowing through. But in that moment, as soon as I asked about that, I was blocked. And I couldn't understand why. So that client came and left, whatever. And I was sharing with one of my friends about feeling like a deliberate attempt to block me from this information. And then they told me about these siblings that they knew that would probably be interested in telling me about their UFO experiences. And so my friend set it up so I could meet these two siblings. So we met, and they started sharing their stories up in Manitoba, how they used to see UFOs all the time. Both of them did in their community, like several times. They felt there's probably more to it to their story, but they weren't sure. And they offered, which was really cool, if I wanted to regress them both. So of course, I took them up on the offer, and we arranged it so on separate days, like a day apart, I would regress each of them, but I would not. This is what we set up. They wouldn't speak to each other about the experience. They wouldn't even let each other know if it worked or if it didn't work. if the regression even worked. And if it did, what the information was that surfaced. So they came on separate days. And then this is so cool. One of them during the regression, I wrote it down. I'm just going to try to find the words that they said because it was really interesting. Okay, so sorry for reading this, but
It's okay.
They said during the regression, the client said, the watchers were there. The watchers were there watching us. And she said, they want to know what you remember. Okay. And they wanted to know what I would get them to recall as well, too. And then I said, because for a while after my client with the mother with the experience where I felt blocked, I started getting these like flashes, these images all the time. And one of them, and I started keeping a journal about all of these experiences. And one of them was I saw like a cat person. That's how I could describe. Part feline, part human. Okay. I had this image. And all of a sudden I said to the client, I said, oh, is that why I'm getting these flashbacks all the time? Right. Or no, pardon me. I said, I know because I transcribed these audios. And I said, and is this why my path is going the way it is right now? And the client responded, yeah, they say you get flashbacks. And I said, is that why I saw the cat eyes? And the client said, you keep getting these quick flashbacks and they try to take it away again, but it's not working. And the client was completely unaware that I had seen the cat people the week before too. So, I started getting a better understanding of what was happening. So all these things were kind of like surfacing all the time. I kept on getting these visions, my third eye all the time. So interestingly enough, I had another client that came, and in their past life experience, they were one of the cat people, part feline, part human, in an alternate or past or parallel lifetime. I'm not really sure. During a regression, kind of like a cross between like the human and the feline. And in that session, they looked at me and said, like, don't you remember who you are? And they said that they recognized me as one of those people. Okay, so that was interesting. I joined a meetup group right after that as well, too, for experiencers. It was run by Grant Cameron at the time. Okay. And as I started going to these sessions, it was as much to help the clients as it was from my own information. Okay, I wanted to help them to be more like better informed and stuff. But as I was attending more of these meetings, things were starting to surface, and all of a sudden, it's like taking the pieces of the puzzle and bringing them together, right? All of a sudden, I started remembering in my childhood, as the people at the meetup group were saying, the nosebleeds. Feeling like there's someone watching you all the time. And then I started remembering my childhood, being afraid of the dark all the time, the dream of something trying to grab me out of the window. You've probably heard of the A negative blood type as well, too. Have you heard of that?
That's
so I'm not sure
so interesting because the data, there's the data that I just measured too has A negative, and it's not the O. That's so that started like interesting,
kind of correlating the two things, or the different things like that too, right? And that dream of the hand trying to pull me out the window all the time, and I've started kind of questioning myself, right? So then what I started seeing, getting images of, was different ships, different UFOs, just flashes, images, my third eye, right? And then another time I saw an image of it looked like these black square, it looked like almost like slate, and there were like holes in it, divots. And I knew that that's where you put your hand on it for the ships, to move the ships.
Okay.
With awareness, okay? And different things started coming, like it was crazy all the time for a while. It lasted several months, right? Then I saw an emblem. It was an emblem like a black bird kind of wrapped around itself like a circular shape. And there's the eye was like a planet. It was like an emblem of a planet, or I'm not sure. Okay. And then one night, this is where I really started getting engaged in this conversation about being an experiencer. So I'm laying in bed, and all of a sudden a being appeared in front of me. It looked like hologram. Okay, like a hologram.
Mm-hmm.
And then it disappeared, and a different being presented itself. And it's like they were introducing themselves to me, is what it felt like. One after the other. It must have been like a dozen, 2 dozen that were showing themselves to me. And then they disappeared. Okay. And then another time it was these tablets. These tablets, they're about this big. And they had these symbols on it. And these tablets appeared, and it would show itself, it would leave, another tablet would like appear in front of me, it would leave, and they started flipping really fast, and I started panicking, thinking like, I'm never going to be able to remember these tablets, what they mean. And then I stopped and I said, okay, just relax. Your subconscious is going to recall what it needs to recall, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to hold on to that information. I didn't know, this is where I get into the really crazy stuff, but I didn't understand what they were, and I still don't. But again, it was just tablets. They kept on flipping as if like cards, playing cards, like just showing themselves one after the other. Then I started painting some of the ships that I saw. And another thing that I saw, that it was beautiful. It wasn't a smooth round ball. It was like a metallic ball, maybe, I don't know if you can see, like this big. It was kind of textured. It wasn't smooth. And I could see it was like fiber optic lights coming out from around it. Mm-hmm. Okay. I did not know what this ball meant. It was just hovering in front of me, and I painted it. I have a painting of it. And all these different things were always appearing, different shapes. And then I started seeing these like sacred geometry shapes would start popping up in front of me all the time. Mm-hmm. And then I was laying in bed another time, and these beings appeared in front of me. At first, all I could see were their eyes. Their eyes were so beautiful, Ryan. It was, when they are present, I would be brought to tears. It's overwhelming emotion of having having them present there. So I started seeing their eyes, and it was like pure organic love, right? And eventually, I guess they needed me to trust in what I was seeing. The eyes, the view from the eyes started expanding, and then I saw around them, and they had like a reptilian appearance, and I'm like, you're a reptile. It kind of freaked me out because we're told to believe that all reptilians, the species, were evil, and that is not the experience I've had with the reptilians at all. They were different. I think it's Rafar. Oh, I wish I should have written it down. One of the beings had 2 ridges up here, up the forehead. Another one had big, 2 large plates. So that's what I was seeing for a while. And soon thereafter,
was there what color was it?
You know what? I don't even truly recall the color. I don't recall the color exactly. I just remember I just remember I could tell just past the face here, it was getting more scaly. You know what I mean? So that's what I associated with that. But soon thereafter, I never saw them again as in that physical form. I only saw them in energy. So I would see the different color orbs is how they presented themselves to me.
So while you're doing that, I just had something readily available. It just happens to be fresh, and I just wanted to kind of show you. Did it look anything similar to that? Different?
No, it wasn't over the eyes, the ridges. It was up the forehead. Okay. And I wish, you know what? If you don't mind, I'm gonna look on my phone, see if there's.
Yeah, no worries. It's just this happened. This is an experiencer report that hasn't, from 2019, that hasn't been public, like on our website yet. It's on the list. So this is I was looking through.
Interesting. There was a man that, here it is. His name, Razar, Razzar. Have you ever heard of Razar?
No.
This man made a 3D, like what do they call it? Those 3D printers?
Yeah.
For something neat. This, okay, I'm not saying the rest of the body looks like this. Okay, I'm just going to show you the head, like the head. Okay, the eye. Oh no, this won't show, will it? Okay, no.
It might. Hold it more centered. Oh, yeah, I can see it there. Yeah.
No, that's still not.
Okay, so we did a 3D model of that.
Yeah. Sorry. So
Hold it.
Rezar.
Don't hold. Yeah, hold it to the center of the camera, not to. Yeah, there you go. Straight. Except you don't have it on now.
Child-proof, eh?
There you go. Oh, okay, good. Perfect. I can see that. That's interesting.
Okay. What's even more interesting is you seem to, like, I feel like I connect with others who have had similar experiences. So as I was describing this being to an acquaintance of mine, she said, "Oh my God, look what I've seen." She saw the same being around one of her family members, and she drew the same being that I saw. Again, this connection always
corroborating
happens.
Evidence. Yeah. See,
Yes, absolutely.
So much, and that's what we're doing here as well with these little doodles and stuff. The purpose of publishing them in that way is to encourage others to report who may have seen them, eyewitnesses, and bringing that all together.
So I went after that. I also went for, like I said, now it was just seeing them in colors. I could tell them apart from the colors. I went for a Life Between Lives hypnotherapy session, okay? And during that regression, I saw a ship. I had a recollection of a light. At first, I didn't know what I was seeing. It was like a cone shaped. And I said that this light, it was like the pressure of a fireman's hose, like the water. Okay, I just felt it had pressure in the light. And so I could see underneath the ship. I could see pie-shaped lines underneath it. And when I was asked if I could see windows, I said I can't see them, but I saw louvers. It was like layers of louvers on the side. And I said, I don't see the windows. I sense they're underneath these louvers.
Okay.
And I was describing this ship. And then all of a sudden I started literally feeling motion sickness. And the crazy thing about that is, like, literally during my regression, feeling the motion sickness as I was on a ship. And then I also compared it to when I had a C-section. If I had a reaction to the anesthesia, and it felt exactly the same feeling when I was on the table of this, like, being nauseous. Yeah. And it was I almost felt like it was connected somehow. That feeling that I had during my C-section was actually a reaction to my memory during my regression of having this motion sickness. So I've just recently heard of someone saying they've heard of this. Some people that have been abducted, that it's they felt this motion sickness. But I've only heard that once, and that was just recently too. I haven't heard it reported anywhere else.
The motion sickness is new to me. I haven't heard that.
Me too. It was to me as well. Yeah.
But I mean, like, there's so many people. Like, unless we haven't talked to the same people, there's so many variables. Absolutely. But the table, the beings, what you're describing, you're not alone in that. Yeah. You're definitely not alone in that.
So in my regression too, I had also met my soul group. And one of the things I had drawn, and I'm not sure if this was from the regression or from one of my visions, this weird shape, I can't even describe it. It's almost cone shaped, like almost like not a siphon. I can't even think. A funnel, like a funnel shape. Okay. And I had drawn this. And I didn't know what I was drawing, and I had no idea what it was for, but it was in my sketchbook. And then a time later, I had an acquaintance of mine, a friend of mine, who was regressed, and during the regression, they described being with the soul group, and they drew the same thing that I drew. And I said, "You're not going to believe this." I said, "Wait till I get home. I'm going to send you a picture of what I saw." So we had the same thing drawn. It was almost exactly the same thing. So that was really neat. to see like the connection. It's like we're all brought together for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. Then I'm reading Dolores Cannon's book about maybe 6 months later. And guess what? The same shape. And it was, if I recall correctly, in her book, she stated it was something having to do with the UFOs. Oh, I wish I could remember. I should have written this down. Something having to do with the power or something to drive these UFOs. It was, I'm not even going to be able to remember the word. If it comes to me, I'll let you know. But it was something that propelled the power to the UFOs, okay? And so all three of us, or whatever, she had seen that, I guess, with one of her clients in the past. So I hurried up and I sent them a message. You're not going to believe what I just saw in this book. I thought it was crazy, right? So I started seeing different ships. I started painting them to, like I said, seeing these images. And then I'm just trying to see what else there was. Sorry, I'm just kind of looking at this because I'm just trying to put the story together in some kind of chronological order, right? So connecting the pieces. So one of the things I kept on seeing is a UFO on red soil, okay, in the like between the mountains, at the base of the mountain, I saw this triangular UFO sinking into the ground, like it disappeared. I saw myself one time as the wife of a chief in an area with red soil I felt was Australia. When my guides appeared, I took a channeling class, and I remember the teacher had asked me to come up with a name to call them, right? My teacher, Bonnie Bogner, hers was called, the group that she worked with was called the Galactic Council. That's the group that she channels. Oops. 1 sec. I accidentally turned off the light. Okay. So the Galactic Council is a group that she would channel. So when she asked me, I asked my communicating through them, with them, whatever, I asked them, like, what do you want me to call you if I channel you? And they said, my mates. And she said, the mates, the whatever. And I'm like, no, just my mates, right? And I didn't really understand why she said that. As it turns out, I had seen a psychic, gone to see a psychic, and I asked her about my guides, that I call them my guides, whatever. And she said, well, one of them thinks he's really funny. She said, he's kind of like a Brad Pitt type of a character, right? And I'm like, okay, whatever. And she described the three of them that were coming to me at the time. So I go home, I'm lying in bed at night, I'm thinking, like, nothing against Brad Pitt, but I'm not really a Brad Pitt fan. He's not my kind of guy, right? So I'm laying there in bed, and all of a sudden, I saw Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter, appear in front of me in my vision, okay? And I started laughing. I'm like, that's more like it. That's my kind of guy, right? So I was really like, yeah, right on. So I thought that was really funny. I liked his sense of humor. Yeah. Again, an Australian. I didn't realize what that was. So I went to a meditation circle, and as I was there, all of a sudden I said, okay, please, I need to understand how this all fits together. And in the Queen's Gambit in the movie, did you see that?
I have not seen that.
With the chest? Okay, so the girl's laying in bed. She's all wasted. I don't take drugs, but she saw these images across the ceiling. So for me, it was like these floating pieces of the puzzle all came together finally. So my mates, the reason they wanted me to call them that is because of my connection to them in a past life in Australia. And that I'm going to say this wrong. Didgeridoo, their instruments. Okay. I have seen one of those. The red soil, my past life as the wife of a chief, and all those experiences, the mates, again, the name's Australian. I had a client tell me she recognized me as a shaman in a past life in Australia. And again, another Australian connection, right? So all of these pieces finally just kind of came together. And it took me like years to come to that understanding of how this all fits together, and all of these experiences came together finally. And I mean, it's really hard because when clients come, they want to have all the answers right away. Everyone wants to just know what's going on, and they want everything now, right? What's my sole purpose? What's this? What's that? But I mean, I'm 55 and things are still coming to me now. So it doesn't happen in, the one pill fix, right? It takes time. It takes a lot of experience. And I truly believe all these people that have come into my life where they have part of the answer and I have the other part of the answer. We come together so we could collectively have the answer so that we can exponentially expand the collective consciousness much quicker. And I think that's where everyone is coming together now. Everyone holds a little piece. I call it the epoxy effect. So one person will have part of the answer and the other, and that's how we come together. And it's
I'm listening. I'm just looking for something that that resonates. So keep going.
Yeah, of course, that's the way it happens, right? And it's like the UFO with the two ridges. I had a client of mine, client and friend. She wasn't feeling well, and she went to lay down for, I told her to go lay down, and I was going to do something for her. I said, call me back in 5 minutes. I think she knew what I was going to do. I was going to send her some Reiki energy. And I said, we'll connect after the experience, right? And as I was doing Reiki on her, all of a sudden after that, when we connected, she says, does this image mean anything to you? And I'm like, yeah, I just drew this like a couple of years ago. I had seen this image. Do you remember I told you with that, with my friend, we both saw that part of the ship, which I didn't know what it was, what I was drawing at the time. And now it was the same situation with her. She saw something and she drew it, this cylinder. It's hard to explain with these lights in it. And she's told me I'm supposed to use it. She goes, this means nothing to me. She said, you're supposed to use this on me. And I said, you're not going to believe this. Hold on. I ran to my room, got my journal out. I showed her, like I said, it was a couple years old, something I drew, and I didn't recognize. It was a healing tool, a healing modality, if you will, or a tool. And I didn't know what it was supposed to be, but now I understood it had to do with the healing and this blue light. Okay. So this blue light has become really important. And how that is because when I was doing Reiki, when I started doing my Reiki, I didn't understand all these shapes and things that I was seeing. I was telling you the sacred geometry and stuff like that. I'm doing Reiki, and without understanding why, all of a sudden that ball with the light started appearing over the clients. Not all of them, just some of them. The symbol would appear on top of a client's knee when they had damage to their knee. And I just allowed it to happen. I just allowed this healing. I knew it was part of the healing. I knew I was channeling this energy, if you will. And that's what I started doing. So it's one thing that's really fascinating is I could do that and call in on this energy. This blue light energy has come up with clients during regressions that they've seen it. And then with the Reiki clients, as I kind of call it in and channel the energy onto my clients, some of them, without knowing what I was doing, have, like many, I've written it down, kept track of it. They've said, I don't understand why. I kept on seeing blue light all around me. So obviously this blue light is a healing energy, and I use it as a protecting energy as well. And I use it in my sessions. So now I intentionally use it as part of the work that I do. And so that's how this blue light energy in the sacred geometry has been surfacing.
Have you ever seen this symbol before, or anything similar to that? Question.
Oh, I see. Okay, I'm seeing the sacred geometry. Wait a sec. The triangle for sure. Okay, the main shapes that I've seen, Ryan, have been the pentagon, not to be mixed. And I know the pentagram is part of the pentagon, because if you join the dots of the pentagram, you get the pentagon. And what I've come to understand is the pentagram is the female energy. This is how I feel it. And the pentagon was the male. So as I'm doing part of the blending of the energies of the sacred masculine, divine feminine, which is important that every one of us has that balance of the masculine and the feminine within us, I would see the pentagon over the heart and the pentagram over the solar plexus, and I would weave these two energies. And then a few times I would see the pentagram float and connect, like connect with the pentagon, like they kind of come together.
Interconnected.
So that's how I recognize that these two energies work. Another thing that I would do is blend so I'd see like citrine energy and the amethyst energy, and over the clients with their eyes closed, I would weave it like a figure 8 over them. And they would tell me they would see like this weird energy, these weird colors blending, like purple and yellow. And I'm like, oh my God, they can see what I'm doing without knowing what I'm doing. It's amazing to connect with a client like that, like to have that soul to soul connection with them. Absolutely is how I feel it. And when you're doing the Reiki, you can feel on their bodies, right, where there's any tightness or any plugged energy. It just feels like as you're trying to push that energy through, you just can't. Like it's stuck. Like that wall that comes up I was explaining when we're doing hypnosis. It's the same thing too when you're doing Reiki, as you're trying to push the energy through to try to get it flowing. And it's that same thing. It's that same way of feeling it. So it's beautiful. I mean, how you can't get anything more beautiful than that in a connection with another person, to be so intimate, right? So that's how the Reiki came into place, and how that energy and the blue light energy and all of those things came to meld with my Reiki work. I never expected it to be like that.
So everything just, but it's all connected. It just carried through you, and then now. So where are you now? What are you doing now?
I'm just outside of Winnipeg. Just kidding.
Which is true. But I mean, what are you doing with your abilities today?
What am I doing with my abilities? Just trying to reach out to help others still, and just to be open to helping people. I mean, I've had people that I never really had contact with or very little communication with, and then all of a sudden they have their own strange experiences and they have no one to talk to. I had someone recently just reach out to me and say, oh, everyone thinks I'm crazy, but I saw these lights and everything. I was just discussing with you about the orange lights and stuff. And they just feel so happy to have someone to just even to listen to them, believe in them and listen to them, just give them a platform, the opportunity to share that. Because like I've always been that weird girl, the weird mom. My kids know I'm weird and they call me weird mom and everything. But I'm okay with that, even though they say, oh, you're so weird and everything. Their friends come over and, oh, Mom, tell them about this story, or tell them about this and tell them about that, right? I'm okay with being that person. I'll be whatever.
We're all weird, but we're weird together, and so.
And they know, like my kids know, they can come to me about anything because of that, right? My son's not so much into the topic. We don't talk about that stuff. But my daughter, even though she's not into it, she's had some interesting experiences, but I won't push it. Everyone has their own path, and they need to follow it at a speed that's comfortable for them. We can't all expect everyone to be where we are at this point in our lifetime, because it takes us a lifetime of our experiences to get us to where we are, right, Ryan? So it's important that we allow people their journey, to have that journey, to go through that themselves. Because if we push ourselves, that my analogy is comparing the child, you don't put a child straight from kindergarten into grade 12, because they'll miss out all that important information that they need to have.
But there are patterns too. There are trends that in your lives as well. We're measuring that too with what we call the ultra spectrum. So essentially, these paranormal events, these psychic events, these extraterrestrial and UFO events, they can be connected. They are linked. And what I'm finding interesting in our studies is, they work with each other. Sometimes a contact happens, and then these abilities develop, or they're enhanced. And then it's kind of all timelined along the way. So in terms, I had a question that I wanted to ask back when you were doing the paranormal investigation part, and the machines had had absorbed the energy in the room, like the batteries had died.
Oh yeah.
And with your background in drawing in the energy and communicating or connecting with the energy, how do you know that, or actually, would you accept the possibility that it wasn't, it might have been you who drained the energy because you're so powerful in that sense to absorb, that the machine had failed because your belief and you're pushing that energy out there to connect, that maybe you drained the battery? And
I've never heard anyone ask it or ask that question. I've never.
Welcome to Tessa.
I would say no.
Okay.
I mean, because it's something I've never considered. Like my first response would be no, because I've never considered it.
You're just as susceptible, and that's kind of the Tessa way too. Is like, yeah, it could be ET, yeah, it could be paranormal, it could be both. But what if it's us? What if we, and there's a lot more evidence to suggest that we have these abilities, and we are the ones manipulating technology and all these other side, and we've been suppressed, and we haven't been granted the confidence and the ability to expand as well. So I wouldn't rule that out, and that would be easier to prove than extraterrestrial existence.
Have you ever heard of the okay, you remember the blue energy I was telling you about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was discussing this. I don't know if you've heard of Eric Mitchell or not. I was discussing it with him, and as soon as I mentioned the blue energy, or we were discussing blue energy, he said that's called, I'm just going to tell you what it's called, the antenna. And apparently the antenna has been researched. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
It's apparently responsible for empathy, psychic, and non-local phenomenon. The energy in the synopsis is related to a spectrum in the electromagnetic field. It can be connected at a distance. So quantum entanglement is kind of like the only word they have for it right now, but they don't want to use that term. So apparently that's something that's been researched that I had never heard of before. So
that's interesting, because then those who have that gift of sight, those who can see into this alternative reality or dimension, however it is, if there is an energy flowing, some can feel it, some can taste it, some can hear it, some can see it, it's very rare that, at least in my research, that I found someone that has the ability to have all of those. And I feel so the reason why I was asking you about this image, this is this was given to me in what we have identified as perhaps a psychogenic download. This is the foundation in which Tessa was created. Everything that I draw from comes from this shape, this image. And the one thing that I've been kind of sitting on here is that these, if they are chairs, which I'm kind of leaning towards depending on the perspective, we have all the elements. We have fire, water, earth, and spirit. Forget the other one. So then we have a lot of symbolism here with these chairs and all these other things too. But the concept is water is very that water element. I think that's kind of the dowsing kind of scenario. I believe the fire chair here is connected to Reiki. Like there's a lot of pseudosciences in these chairs, and what I feel like the symbolism in this power symbol, in which I call it the map. Everything's focused on the center. If these are chairs and we're all focusing on the center, there's 12 chairs, is that symbolism too. But I feel like each and every single one of these chairs has that element in order to solve or to reach whatever is in the center. So it can't not. So if we have that ability, as an example, if we were to use the senses as 5 chairs, just say we got sight, we got taste, we got hearing, we got feeling, and we got smelling. So if all of you guys are able to use those senses on the same subject at the same time, we might actually have a better understanding of what that is. And so I believe that I was given this in order to bring people together, in order to find the right people that resonate, that grow, that want to that know these things, and just connect and figure out what it is that's going on. Because not a single person in anything is able to do this on their own, but we all are connected to this phenomenon. We all can feel presence. We can all sense it. We know when it's just like when you hear a bad note in music, you don't have to play an instrument to know that the sound is off. You can tell that it doesn't sound right because it doesn't feel right. The energy is off. We all are in tune to feel this energy. Just some of us don't really understand how it works. So I guess what I'm kind of leading into is that you've said a lot of things about that kind of resonate around that, and I'm drawing a blank on how we got connected in the first place.
And so am I.
So yeah, and I've been trying to figure out how this started, how this all led up, and then that kind of leads to that divine. Everything happens for a reason. It's meant to happen. I'm reading the chat and things like that too. Everyone in the audience is totally loving this, and they're resonating with it. It's moments like this that are powerful. That like I don't know. It's just intuition. So I feel like if we do have these abilities, we don't understand it enough to make sense of it, but yet we're not so much aware of ourselves that where we're going. But if we go together, we might be able to figure that out. What are your thoughts?
The epoxy, my epoxy effect, like I always said.
Yeah.
I was going to share something with you about the blue energy again. Okay, so this is interesting. Years ago, when this all started unraveling for me, I heard someone whisper in my ear, Akasha. Okay, so I looked that up, that word, because I had no idea what it stood for. It's ether.
Okay.
One of the elements, right? The cat people that had come up, and apparently, I can't remember who I spoke with. They said that the cat people have actually, like a lot of experiencers have been discussing seeing the cat people, and that lifetime that person, my client, had as one of these cat people, dealt with this ether, this blue energy on the planet. And then with my communication, my connection with Eric Mitchell, when we're talking about the blue light, and he's talking about this quantum entanglement. So let me explain to you how incredible this light is. I told my friends, I said, I'm going to do something, and you tell me if there's anything unusual, again, randomly, because we always do these crazy things. That's what we do when we're, bored on Friday nights. I said, I'm going to do something. Just tell me if you sense anything or notice anything or whatever, right? Without telling him, because I was just trying to see if it would work. I transmitted that energy to their homes. Both of them recognized there was some weird glow in the house. Both of them, without me telling them what I was doing. They saw the blue light. And so it's when I talk about that quantum entanglement, we are able to project that energy, that light, beyond our sense of reality. So it's dimensional shifts. It's I don't even know how to explain it, because I'm not a scientist, but without knowing what I was doing, they're able to see the blue light. I don't know. My house looked like it had a blue light in it. It's just crazy. It's crazy. And I wish I understood it, but I understand that this is a healing light. It's a very powerful light. And, it can do a lot of good for a lot of people. And I just think I'm so glad that there's, someone researching this blue synapses, this antenna that does this. I'm glad that there's actually validation for what I'm feeling and I'm experiencing. It's fascinating, and I think there's a lot more work that should be done on that as well too. So
Yeah, no, well, existence of an antenna, that's how it works. We cell phones are connected to a tower that's an antenna, like it's and micro, like all these waves. Just because we can't see them, we have evidence of like right now where we there's a tower that is connecting us in different time zones. So like that antenna in the ether, in the in the
Akasha.
in the other world, would make sense. So when we meditate and when we reach out into consciousness, again, with what I was talking about with the batteries and what if it was you, how do you know, I guess you don't really know, or could you ever know whether you're communicating with another human being who's also meditating at the same time, or in another space and time, past, future, present? You're just making, you're just making a connection.
I used to think, I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I used to think they're not guides. They're actually my partners, my mates. The mates, they're actually my partners. They work with me. I'm not beneath them. I'm as them with them. But I used to think they were like flying around in UFOs and stuff like that, but they're not. They're multi-dimensional beings, right? So, I mean, we astral travel. I've done remote viewing, astral projection. So it's all in, one and the same, basically, right? So they're traveling dimensions, and so do we in dream state or through remote viewing, which I've done before. Look what time it is already. Oh my God, time's flying. But
and you were worried that we weren't going to have anything to talk
I know.
about.
I thought it was going to last like half
10
an hour.
minutes. Yeah, no.
So it's all part of the same, and that's what they've taught me, right? That, but it took me a long time to understand that, and they also wanted me to understand that for me, for my journey. And I told you that, don't take it as an offense to you. It was like they didn't want me to they said, don't get too caught up in the conspiracy stuff. It's just not what's important. And they really wanted me to get that point across to me. It's about the consciousness and the work that we have to do here. Like, let's hurry up. Let's get past the flying saucers and the ETs, and let's do the work for our planet and to help humanity. Right. And, but it's not taken away of everyone has their own path, their own journey. And it's important. And the work, like I said, I'm not demeaning what you're doing at all. Everyone has their role. My role is not to be caught in that part of it. Everyone, that's your,
Yeah, no, well, we I don't want to be in that either. We're trying to understand what's real or what's factual. And then we're reclassifying, we're branding, if you will. We are re-identifying the phenomenon with accepting the possibility, or with bringing into light the psychogenic, the mental abilities. Because if you are, like, you're a painter, you're a drawer, you're an artist, having that evidence existing, right? Because I can't see what's in your mind, but if you put that on, if we go through a reporting process and then you draw, that's why I have these doodles and these draws, because and we work through them to recreate these events, so that way other people from all over the world just might be like, hey, I saw that too, and then that starts to stack the evidence. Did you notice that when you said the word conspiracy, my camera cut out right on cue? Did you even notice I was gone for a little bit?
No. Did it?
You were right into that. That's when I came back and I had this smirk on my face. It was just like, that was so weird. As soon as you said conspiracy, I was gone. Just cut it right out.
Making its point. I'm getting the point across, eh?
I don't know. Maybe you were just so concerned in that moment. You just sent that energy. You did it. It was probably you.
Probably
you. Give yourself more credit. Okay, so we have 2 minutes left, but we'll go a little bit over time. This last little bit, I want you to tell everybody where they can find you, if they need you, any like how can people follow you, continue your journey, and all those other things right now.
Okay, well, I am on Instagram, Facebook, and I have my own page on Facebook. The Doorway is my business page, but I have a website, and I actually prefer, I think, people to reach me there just because it's more personal, and I want to ensure more, I guess I don't completely trust Facebook for privacy, right? Okay. Sorry. So okay. My business email address is thespiritualdoorway.ca.
Okay.
And I had to, even though my business name is The Doorway, it's called the spiritualdoorway.ca. Reason being, go figure, a business that sells doors got my The Doorway.
Yeah, no, it's okay. That's understood. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
I had to come up with something else. So the spiritualdoorway.ca. I am on Facebook, on Instagram, and I do offer. We were discussing this before. I do do online regressions. Okay, video and over video audio, and they've been very successful. I've had clients throughout Canada, Quebec all the time. I'm bilingual, so I do bilingual regressions as well too. For experiencers, I would only under certain circumstances do it online if I felt that it was a safe thing to do, where I won't risk traumatizing a client, and to make sure that I have all the facts and as much information about their health, and as well as make sure that it's something that I could offer them, that I feel confident that I could help them. And if they have PTSD already or anything like that, it's something I would definitely.
If I were to get a report and